doing the oral history project interviews. I'm Carol Cole from Social Science. The filmmaker is Mark Gaynor, and it's being filmed on March 27th in 1995, room B 322. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Ron. You could tell us your name and your present position.
Yeah, my name is Ron Lubman. I'm an associate professor in the interior design department on the third floor of the D building at FIT. And I guess I was asked about some of my recollections about areas of interest that I have concern with and teach in. And a lot of my colleagues call me the computer guy. I sort of detest the name because I'm an architect by profession, and I have too many years of practice, probably over 25 to 30, in the interior design and architectural field. And I like to think that I'm a designer and an architect. And one of my tools happens to be using the computer. I would hate to have an artist be referred to. Here's my friend, the paintbrush, or the palette manipulator. But that seems to happen frequently. I guess I've earned it, or at least somehow it has fallen upon me. What's of interest is many years back, I would say about 15 years ago, I decided to look into computer technology as a means of expressing technological thoughts to other people. That includes anything that is now referred to as multimedia and high-end graphics and video, etc. And at the time, my primary goal was to help people envision three-dimensional space, and I started experimenting with software that produced perspective drawings as such in the form of three-dimensional block models. And I started showing it to some of my colleagues. Somewhere along the way, Professor Julius Pinero, who I shared an office with at FIT, was active in the Teaching Institute, I believe, and suggested that the upcoming world of computer technology should be a #1 on FIT's list of things that we must become timely with. And several people were organized by Pinero into a group called the ELF, for Electronic Learning Facility. And I think our goal or our charge was to show how the world coming with computers would help all of our colleagues in art and design more specifically than in other areas where word processing and spreadsheets were becoming commonplace. I sort of became the chief ELF for a period of about 3 years with some release time that was given by then President Marvin Feldman. And my goal was to bring this awareness to people in art and design. I organized seminars. We purchased some small computer equipment, and I started doing demonstrations wherever and however I could, and it was met with a lot of opposition. A lot of people were sort of taken aback by, you know, the computers are going to replace us. I'm an artist, I use a brush, I don't use a keyboard, and all sorts of comments. And I sort of became an extension of this negative machine that people disliked. And it was not very comfortable, but I won several followers. And of course, in interior design, we started with a computer-aided design course, which became part of the curriculum, so that our students could go out and be functional in the real world. And I try to write the syllabus so that it was not just, quote, another college course. My exposure to people in the field who took these courses in colleges was such that they seemed to be ill-prepared. It was more like an academic exercise. So I fashioned a syllabus on the techniques needed in industry. And that's how I presently still teach the course. I teach computer-aided design, and I teach methods and materials of construction, which seem to be at different ends of the scale, and I'm forever aware of and try to make all of my students aware of the need to always think that they're designers, to be conscious of the fact that design is what they will be doing. And the computer is not going to automate their design. Usually designers who have little skill produce little worthwhile graphics with the computer. But if one understands what their goals are design-wise, the computer becomes an amazing tool to speed up the thought process. It's as though you have electrodes on your brain, and you can sort of think, and with a little skill, see a lot of what you're thinking without going through laborious daily and weekly task of doing paintings, etc. It's a wonderful design preparatory tool. Along the way, I have composed, written several courses and syllabi, or syllabuses, involving three-dimensional space manipulation, so design students can better understand what they think they understand in their own minds. And I've recently completed a course in doing architectural interior design rendering, utilizing the computer as rendering media rather than the usual gouache or watercolor or oil paint. And I'm very anxious and hopeful that this course will be available within the next year. And I'm very anxious to see how students will take to what I've developed as a series of techniques to use this wonderful technology effectively. The thing that's unusual about all of this is it's hard to forecast an avalanche. Or if one knows there's going to be an avalanche, one doesn't stand at the bottom of a precipice or an area that will threaten their being. I think we're in the midst of an oncoming avalanche. More and more departments and individuals are becoming aware of the need for computer technology, especially in the graphic arts, and Hollywood movies are showing wonderful special effects. And what happens, there are courses coming up at an exponential rate. And initially, we said, well, we need one classroom or two, perhaps we'll have 6. Well, now it looks like we need more like 36 or what have you. And I don't know how to prepare the school and the administrators for this sort of an avalanche. Initially, if one to examine all the departments that we have at FIT, especially and including mainly the graphics departments only, and examine what we need for computer technology, I think we'd be overwhelmed that any facility that we thought we would have for the next decade is presently completely obsolete, and I have no idea how we're going to produce the necessary funding, buildings, hardware, software. Fortunately, the people are probably available. There are a lot of professionals that have become involved with this new age thinking. And my concerns are really, after we convince all of our colleagues what we need for software and hardware and where we should be going philosophically, will we have the equipment and the space and the necessary staff and budget to meet those needs and dreamy ends?
What role has industry played in shaping the program that's in place and future plans?
Okay, one, I don't know what role industry has played. I have solicited donations from professionals, architects in the field that have equipment that is still very usable and that they no longer require. And I'm not sure. In advertising, I'm sure there's been a lot of activity. In the interior design architectural field, it's been a very slow turnover. 10 years ago, I predicted that within the decade coming, all architects and interior designers would be utilizing the computer for most of the drawing. Well, now I'm predicting this for the next decade. I think we're 10 years off, and part of it has to do with the business technology and the world of making money. The architectural business is in a slump. The real estate business is in a slump. So some of the forecasting as to where my specific department might be going or would have been seems to be off or shifted a bit. In the video fields and in the Hollywood movie making, that seems to be going at a great step forward.
How does your department relate to the Hollywood video?
Okay, how does our department relate to Hollywood video? What we try to do as interior designers and architects is convey a concept to other individuals, a student to professor, to a client. You listen to a group of people saying, we need X, Y, and Z. We need a school, we need a store, we need a restaurant. and the dream is born in the mind of the designer, and one has to communicate some of these wildly imaginative solutions to those that requested it. The communication has formerly been with drawings, utilizing watercolor technique, perspective drawing, any form of painting, and graphic arts with pencils and pens. And it is my goal that this be transformed into video, computerized drawings, imaginary walk-through space, so that you sort of can drift through the proposed space and envision it and criticize it while you're looking at it. Part of the goal is not to do it conventionally. We, the designers, come up with a thought. To present it better, we say, wow, let's produce a perspective that will show the client what their entrance will look like, and work laboriously. And when it's done, we may see little flaws in the design, and there's no time to redo all of the drawings. If this were done electronically, we can actually sort of surrealistically float through the proposed space while we're designing it, not at the end, the conventional way. We think we design on scrap paper. When we're finished, we give the drawing and one looks and say, my, what a wonderful space that may be. The designer should see the space while he's designing it, while she's designing it, while whomever it is, the group is designing it. If they then have the feedback instantly available, they can correct, modify, and alter the design, so at the end, it's not a surprise that, wow, this really looks good, or, oh my gosh, this looks horrible. And that's really been my goal, that the designer utilize a tool not as an end presentation, but the Hollywood, you asked about Hollywood, the ability to sort of look at the most amazing thing while you're thinking it, so that you can then see if your thoughts about what you were proposing are actually the way you imagined they would be. And as this this real-time type of a video experience becomes available, it should become part of our coursework, so designers can experience their proposed spaces in the design process, so that the feedback to correct these designs become part of the final presentation. And then the final presentation should not be a static board or a painting, but should be a video, a means of showing individuals who are curious as to what your design will look like, just what it really would look like. Nuances of light and dark and shade and feelings of materials, etc., should become part of it. And of course, maybe smell and sound, so that you experience the proposed space before it's up, and it's either a most exhilarating experience because it's better than any drawing, or it's a horrendous experience because it's a big letdown and the design fell flat. This ability to use the modern day technology should become part of all schools of design, especially where three-dimensional space is concerned.
Are there other schools that are capable of doing it now?
There are many schools. I believe at this juncture, within the last year or semester, Columbia University has started something in the architectural school called the Paperless Studio, where the designs are entered or created with computer technology, as opposed to today, in most instances, the designer uses conventional means, graphite brushes and sketches in a conventional fashion to do the preliminary thinking, and then after much has been put down in conventional means, it's transferred somewhere or another to the computer. I have been pushing myself in the last 2 years to do most of my design thinking directly on the computer. And I've been challenged at times, but I can demonstrate this. I could sit down, ask for concepts, and while the discussion is ensuing, I can build and manipulate three-dimensional models to see and show others what my design thoughts are like. And I think that's where most schools will be going toward what they've been calling the paperless studio, where you have to rethink your method of getting your thoughts down on the page, quote, or the page may be a videotape or some sort of a three-dimensional modeling, or the goggles of the new age, what do we call that?
Virtual reality.
Virtual reality. Everyone is after that. It probably will happen within the next 10 years. And that hopefully will help us to have much better designs.
Are any of our students doing something like that now?
Well, most students are dabblers, and if anything, I think they're not up to my expectations. Some of them buy computers. I try to encourage and make it look like the world's greatest magic act, and students are drawn in. I have a following, like sort of like the Pied Piper. Students follow me down the hall. What machine can I buy for how much money, and what will I do? And then they become discouraged because they think somehow what they're thinking will get into the computer somehow. When they see it requires hard work and an ability to design and to understand space, they sort of back away. So some are getting into it. For me, I would say it's an unfortunate few. I would say 10% are really overwhelmed and sort of they will sell their car and whatever else to acquire equipment to do some of this stuff. Many are overwhelmed by, I guess, it's something foreign to them. Often this is associated with adults, and the new generation of students have been born with the video machine in front of them, but they still fear it, by and large. I would say 50% are not comfortable sitting in front of a computer to design. And hopefully within the next couple of years, this will diminish. It absolutely will. I see in new curricula being established in most institutions, more and more dependence upon direct initial computer contact as a design generating force, so that some of the conventional media, paper, pencils, etc., will play a lesser role. And then within a couple of generations, we'll probably see a lot of everything happening electronically.
What are the students like at FIT? Are they students mostly males, first generation college?
Well, okay, at FIT, I'm not sure. At FIT, interior design, we have a mixture. They're mostly female. And I'm not sure what our statistics are, which our department has a wonderful statistics tracking information system. We're sort of aware of who we have and what percentages are in what age brackets. We have a fairly high percentage, I think in the 20% range, that are previous college graduates that are looking for more technical ability in a specific area, in this case interior design. And I find that the intelligence of an individual is an interesting factor in how they take to designing. Talent is primary, but the more mature individual seems to take to the coursework and the electronic work with a better sense of ease and understanding than the high school freshman. Then again, one has to look into students who are, quote, the wizards at the high school level often go on to be the doctors, dentists, and lawyers and things in high halls of academia. And students that are drawn toward the arts have a different interest and goal. In interior design, I see we have students that sort of think technically but prefer to be designers, and they're a mixture of artists and technicians. And it's hard to get the perfect Renaissance man or Renaissance person type where you have a talented mind technically and artistically, which is what I'm always looking for. And oftentimes I'm not overwhelmed with this totality. Maybe it doesn't exist. But I would say most of our students, if I had to push in one direction and state whether they are more technical, they appear mostly they are more artistically gifted. I find I went to a 5-year architectural school, and most of the students studying there were geared toward technical thinking, and they had to be pushed into understanding how to express themselves artistically. And here I find the students are basically artistic in their thoughts, and they have to be pressured into the technical end of thinking, and that does include the computer technology. But this semester I have perhaps, 80 students or so, and I would say 60% of them by the 5th or 6th class become intrigued by what the computer drafting capabilities are and what they can do with this.
long have you been at FIT, Ron?
175 years, actually. I'm here. It's not yet. My time at FIT, I think it's about 11 or 12 years. I was doing a series of lectures as an interior design person. I'm a registered architect, and I practiced for over 25 years. And one of our faculty members came to this lecture, and it was about 12 years ago, I believe, and the lecture was called The Future of Computers in Architecture and Interior Design. I was sitting in an office, and I became intrigued by computer technology, and I found everyone typed word processing. And I bought an experimental device called a BitPad, or a tablet and a pen, and dabbled with software where you can actually produce perspectives without using much of the keypad. And I created a seminar, and it was attended by two of our faculty, Martin Zelnick and Julius Pinero, and they said, "My gosh, would you ever think of lecturing at FIT?" And my response was, "What is FIT?" I was pretty ignorant at the time, at least of that. And I created a computer course at Marty Zelnick's request. He was the chairperson then elect of interior design, and it became our CAD course. And then a position opened, and I put in a bid, and I've been teaching now for a full time for about 10 or 11 years. I'm not certain of the time. Time goes fast and mysteriously when you're having fun. And I tried, I think one thing I have done, I've encouraged most of our faculty to adapt the computer as part of their thought process. Of course, for word processing and grading and spreadsheets and other things, but also to become aware of the magic of three-dimensional and two-dimensional drawing, so to speak. And I think in full-time faculty, I think every faculty member has at least one computer, and many have experimented with graphics. And of course, my phone rings day and night. Oh my God, I lost the letter. I lost this. I lost my mind. I really don't mind that. I do that with the students. I give my phone numbers out freely, and I welcome everyone to call. And I'm so sorry because they really do, and I never sleep. But no, I'm really not sorry. It's the way I am. I enjoy being helpful. And it's a very happy thing to see a lot of people taking to the stuff with a little help and reduction of the fear of this weird new technology. Everyone gets on and starts using it.
Have you seen changes in the students over the past 10 years, the type of student we're getting here?
That's a tough one. I often think that we're getting students that are less academically gifted. I'm not sure if I can substantiate why I have these thoughts. Maybe it's just in conversation. It's my feeling that we get students that are really primarily interested in the arts. And they're not aware that in the interior design practice requires a piece of technician, a lawyer, a doctor, an Indian chief, and being an artist. But that's been one of my complaints constantly. Perhaps I'm just a grouchy old guy. But I would hope to find students that are mathematicians, that are technically gifted and artistically talented. And I feel that I have to sort of prod them a little too much to get technical thoughts out of them. Especially with the 3D computer course has produced this final summation in my head. Everyone wants it because they can show space and get perspectives, and it's such a great tool. And then when they see that you have to build models, quote, as though you were building them from material electronically, many back away. Like, oh, it's too much work. And that discourages me. Our seniors have been producing some high-level graphics for their thesis projects, and many of them are using the computer technology, especially the 3D stuff, because many use electronic media, video, and electronic slideshows and integrated sound systems to do a final presentation, and they have been doing that. But more and more, because of the 3D course that we offer, many of the students are coming up with, I think, really meaningful, three-dimensional spaces that's been communicated to the faculty through the computer technology. You know, I could come up and say, wow, do I have this great idea? How does it look? Well, where is it? Well, it's here. You know, sort of let's take a view inside, and the computer is helping to get a lot of this out. So I'm sort of pretty happy about that.
You also mentioned about 20% have a college degree already, the types of students.
Yes, don't hold me to percentages. I run around.
Most of the others are from the metropolitan area, American-born.
Well, we have many students that are, as a matter of fact, that are not American and that are on visas. I'm not sure what the percentage. We have, I think, a fairly decent number of Asian students, and somehow I find communicating through language barriers is one of the things I like to do. It's a charade at times, but I can easily, or at least I think easily, communicate some of the most complex thoughts. That's where I feel I'm successful as an educator. Even with a language barrier, I'm able to communicate what some of my course information is. At least I hope that's what happens. Maybe if you question my students, you'll find I'm totally unsuccessful.
When you think of the program, are there any things that you'd like to, really zero in on and mention that included in
interior design? Well, I think for the future, we should try converting our design instructors to think 100% computer technology. That's a very important thing. So that the instructors, being from a past generation or two, I think are hesitant to use the computer as a design tool. And some deep down probably think that it is not a true design tool. And I think that's like criticizing Gutenberg's press as the only way to get information about religion is from the liturgy, and you must write with a crow quill pen every word of the Lord so that it penetrates your hand. This was, in fact, some thoughts of the church fathers back when the pre-press and when the first printing press came about. And in fact, there's no better way to get concepts out than in the printed word, but the newness of the technology frightens some people. And I think our faculty are probably slowly drifting. Many theorize that the only way to go is with the computer, but they themselves probably are a little sluggish to take to it. And I'm talking on the design end, so that much of design is presented and criticized electronically. That's where I think we should be, and I've been pushing and writing various course proposals where this would become the state of our art, that the three-dimensional process be understood and used by all of the design faculty. And some of these architects and interior designers who presently teach design may think it, but they somehow think, well, if you're doing it on the computer, it's not really a true way to design. And
are they working in the field themselves?
yes, all of our faculty are working in the field. I do a lot of field work. I do a lot of presentations professionally, and I think some in their hearts actually believe that the computer will never be part of the true design process. One will always need a pencil and this sort of a thing. That's the way you design. You don't design by thinking and using an electronic device. And because of that, I sort of have little petty frustrations. Hopefully that there's a lot of ways to do this. They say, well, you can't, you need a paper napkin and a tabletop. Maybe that's the way it's been. But musicians thought that, and now a lot of the fantastic music is being produced electronically. It's just a matter of reconditioning the thought process of the creator. And once that happens, I think, I would hope we have the equipment and the laboratory space necessary to support this newfound group of skilled professionals.
Okay, we're drawing to a close. Is there something else you would like to say, possibly, or add?
Gosh, I'm too talkative. I guess I do have a statement for those of you that may be listening. I think one should not prejudge the artist's tools when looking at any form of an art presentation. Look at it, the it being some sort of production, be it a movie, a painting, for the art content, the design content, the color, the mood, the nuances of life and joy that it may present, and not to focus on, well, of course this is so-and-so, it was done by a camera. Of course this is so-and-so, it was done by a computer. It wasn't really painted the right way with a brush. That's an absurdity. And from little conversations that I've heard, that seems to exist amongst many of our faculty and professionals. The tool, as I started, becomes part of a judgment for or against the art form. And art is art. And one should not look negatively or positively at the tool to produce it. I'm Ron Lubman. I'm an architect. I like to think I'm a designer. I think and play design. And I'm often introduced as, oh, here's our computer. And they shake my hand. And that bothers me. So the closing statement is to all of those people who are interested in any form of artistic expression, flow with the new technologies and don't prejudge. Prejudice is not a great thing. And there's a lot of this going on with regard to art and what we get out of the artist's mind if it's not done in some conventional fashion. That's really where I think we're at.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.